Thank you for joining us. This is Paul Wilson.
And Chris Hemke.
And you're listening to the Diesel Performance Podcast. Chris, I wanted to take a minute right at the top here today to talk about our awesome sponsors, WC Fab and Exergy Performance.
Yep.
These two companies go hand in hand with what we do over at Duramax Tuner and Calibrated Power. We're into tuning, Worley's into fabrication, and of course Exergy is into fuel. We need all three of these components to make any sort of power or powerful truck.
Yeah, I think it kind of segues really well into our topic today because as, you know, us being here in the Midwest, and I mean, honestly, within the U.S., you know, there's cold fronts that happen in the winter months and whatnot.
Sure.
And, you know, turbochargers are more susceptible to potential failure if you don't treat them right in the cold weather. Injectors and injector pumps, they are susceptible to premature failure if you don't take care of them properly in the colder months. And then the tuning, you know, when the trucks don't run properly, the tuning gets blamed to be the culprit in the cold months. So, you know, it's just it's odd how everything kind of comes together. But you know, if it wasn't for our sponsors and our listeners, you know, we wouldn't be doing this. So
absolutely, you know what I think is really cool about that is talking about winter prep. We've done episodes around winter fuel and winter prep before, and it just feels like every single cold front, it bears repeating some of this content. So guys, if you've already listened to our winter prep episodes, it's been over a year since we've done one. We don't have a lot of great new content. There's no new product on the market that's going to make winter easy on your diesel. But there are some pretty simple things you can do to keep things moving along, to keep your life as easy as possible as a diesel truck owner.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to dive into it, when you're in the Midwest, specifically, you know, we have winter blend fuel.
Yep.
Right. So 6 months out of the year, the fuel makers or oil makers, distributors, whatever you want to consider them, they blend a summer blend. Right. Yep. Usually better mileage, run a little nicer. The color, the purity in the fuel is a little nicer. And then the winter blend stuff kind of looks like piss. Is the best way to put it. It's a watered down green. It's just
Yeah,
it's diluted.
The additives that they're putting in there are to prevent gelling. So one of the big problems with diesel fuel is that it is susceptible to gelling or creates like a paraffin wax. So it actually looks like candle wax when it gets real cold. It turns into a hard kind of butter-like substance.
Yeah, it looks like butter, 100%. Yeah. Your fuel filters, your fuel lines, all the way into the injector. Guys, just for a peace of mind here, common sense. Your truck gels up. You could add any additive you want. It's not going to do shit, right? The additive that you add to the fuel tank isn't going to miraculously work its way through the lines and the filters and the hard lines and the rail and the injectors. The only way that you can fix that is to let the truck thaw out. Now, if you can get the truck into the sun, hopefully the sun baking down on it can help a little bit. But the best tried and true way is to get the vehicle into a shop or into some quarters, if you will, that are warm to allow the truck to thaw out within a few hours.
Yeah.
Now
we have seen that. So Diesel 911 is what we're referring to there. It's a really popular product. You can get it on the shelf at any truck stop or place that sells additives. Diesel 911 will pour through the wax in the tank. So if the fuel in your tank has actually started to gel up or
if the lines are gelled but the fuel isn't and you need everything to recirculate in very, very early stages.
We've seen it get guys to a shop. Yep. I've seen, like, you can pump and draw enough to finally get it there. I've seen guys do crazy things. I'm thinking of a guy who used to work here, Tim Hilgendorf, literally getting a small butane torch out and heating up the filters, the fuel filters. I do not recommend this strategy. It is very dangerous. But we've seen it. We've also seen guys with lift pump heaters. Can we talk about lift pump heaters?
Yeah, I mean, that is a popular thing. I mean, brands such as FASS, you know, AirDog, they offer an upgrade kit that you wire in, and they basically cup the pump and the filters to heat up the fuel. And I mean, the theory there within reason makes sense because it's a point of contact where heat is being provided.
Sure.
And the idea here is that heat travels to ensure that the fuel doesn't gel.
Yeah, and heating the filters themselves is a smart idea because that is probably the number one place I'd say that people are most susceptible to gelling is directly within the lift pump, the external lift pump, fuel filter or fuel water separator. Those two spots seem to gel the most because they hang down underneath the truck. They're not insulated. They're
but
not
even if
protected.
you were to cut the lift pump out of the equation, like in factory trim,
still see gelling.
Because I don't want our listeners to think, oh, if I had a lift pump, I'm gonna have these problems. Nope. The truck, I've seen it go both ways, guys. I mean, I've had lift pumps on every one of my trucks. I've been fortunate enough to, up until last year, never have an issue.
Yeah.
But I know we'll kind of dive into my, what I ran into last year a little later in the show. So
sure. Yeah. So with gelling, I think that's a big part of the conversation, right? Like I think we all know, or maybe not. Maybe you guys are new to diesel and just jumping into the show at this point. Yes, your diesel fuel can gel up. Yes, additives may help. I always get guys to ask what additive do you guys run in the winter. I use Howes. But I don't use it religiously. Yeah, back when I drove the Kodiak and the tanks hung down underneath the truck and they were totally exposed, I used Howes on every fill-up. Now I have the X5. I never use it.
One of my buddies, bar talk, I call it. I do a lot of networking when I go out. And one of my buddies works for a local oil company, and he was telling me that you want to be careful when you're adding additive, because the fuel companies add their additive, and then you going and buying additive off the shelf and adding it to your fuel, it could kind of contradict the additive that they added into the winter blend fuel in the first place.
That's right.
And I've never heard that before.
Well, yeah, because it's chemistry.
Right.
This all comes down to chemistry, right? So it's kind of the same thing like if you're taking medicine and you go to your doctor and ask for a different type of medicine and don't tell them about it, like these two things can react.
Yep.
And that's absolutely correct. And we've seen it from other additive guys. We have interviewed, although I think we lost the tape because the phone connection was so bad, but we have interviewed other guys who are experts in additive, in industrial large-scale application, and their feeling on over-the-counter additives are kind of like dietary supplements. It might work, but nobody knows. There's no proof on it. There's probably not enough actual chemicals. There's not enough actual chemistry in the bottle you're buying off the shelf for $6 or $10 to actually make a difference to your vehicle. So it's kind of a time to take a step back and just look at what's your plan for winter. Yeah. Because it's getting cold already.
No, right. And we'll go into a plan of attack, right? What do guys do? What do I coach guys through? What do I do? Okay. First and foremost, knowing that you're going in the winter, do a vehicle service. Do your fuel filter replacement. Do it now. Get it done and over with, right? When it starts to get cold, guys, don't park your car or your truck, whatever that diesel vehicle is, even gasoline vehicles, don't fill it or don't park it on empty.
Yeah.
Like, leave a half a tank in there at bare minimum. And honestly, like, if you could try to keep it full, keep it full. And if we're going to get into a cold spell, like last winter, guys, we had a week span of negative 50 degrees. Every time I would drive, I would fill the truck back up. Yep. Just because, you know what? There's more volume. There's less. You're less susceptible to having 30 gallons of fuel gel than you would to 3 gallons of fuel gel.
Sure. Yeah. Well, just think if you took a Dixie cup and filled it with water and put it in your freezer, and then you took that Dixie cup and you were to pour that same amount of water into 5 Dixie cups and spread it up. Which one is going to freeze quicker? Well, those 5 Dixie cups with smaller volume is going to freeze quicker.
So, I mean, that's something. Now, I'm gonna get the lash on this, right? And I'm talking about what I practice.
Go ahead.
What I preach.
Be wrong.
I don't add additive. Like I don't. Yeah. I literally keep my truck or my car, because I have a TDI. I keep the vehicle full at all times.
Yeah. And now, honestly, you don't park in the garage anymore either. Only one of them.
Yeah, my truck I don't drive in the winter anymore, so the truck stays parked in the garage.
Fucking princess.
The car I do leave outside, and the car just stays full.
Yeah.
And I deal with freezing my ass off for the first 10 minutes because those things do not get warm to save their fucking life.
Well, here's the other thing I want to talk about as we're talking about firing up your car and the cold weather and fuel. Mm-hmm. The other big one is glow plugs and block heaters.
Yeah, I mean that goes back to service once again. Like when you're doing your fuel, your fuel filter replacement, that service is, make sure your block heater works. My TDI actually has a coolant heater as well.
Nice.
Which really helps.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start using that because I haven't used it this year yet. Your glow plugs, your grid heater if you have a Cummins, or your intake heater if you have a Duramax or a Ford. These are things that really, really go the extra mile to ensure that it works.
How much do we love cold start videos, Chris?
I always go back into my Facebook archives from when I was 19, 20.
Yeah.
I loved them. I loved them. I had a couple old 12 valves that literally a rod should have went through the block right then and there. I don't. I guess like my friends group and the people that I'm friends with on Facebook, I don't see as many of them as I used to.
I think they're also getting less popular over time.
Well, the trucks also start a lot better.
Yeah.
Like, let's face it, a lot of the newer trucks, they don't start like an LB7 or a 12 valve Cummins or a 7.3 Power Stroke. Yeah.
Loved it. No, I'll never forget. I think the best one I ever saw this dude, I want to say it was a white 6-liter, and he would go and take the torpedo heater and put it on a 55-gallon drum in front of the truck and point it at the intake, and then sit there and crank on it, because that was the only way he could get the air warm enough and like the truck warm enough
for the fuel
and everything to actually work properly and get it fired up. And it was one of the roughest, white smokiest, just brutal. You felt bad for the truck and the owner.
One of the sales guys that we have over at Calibrated Power, his name's Anthony.
Chotch Rocket.
He's done a couple videos for the company in the past with his old LB7, but over the summer we went and got him an LOY. And it's what he wanted: Victory Red, crew cab, short bed. It's a nice truck. Like, all in all, it's a nice truck.
It is.
But it's 170,000 mile truck. It kind of needs injectors. The truck sat out in our lot for about a week and a half, and the other night, Tuesday night, we go and we start it up. And this thing, just the truck, the atrocious sound coming out of the engine bay, and the truck was just rocking back and forth. Ruh, ruh, ruh. White smoke out tailpipe. We know that the injectors are how they are. And he puts it in drive, hits the throttle, truck shuts off.
Oh.
Like, that was such a rough, like, I haven't seen that rough of a cold start. And, like, granted, guys, like, it was like 10 degrees for like 2 days here. Now we're back up in the 40s, so...
But it was the perfect example of like what
that
would
have been a good cold start video for sure. Like, I told Anthony, we're going to leave the truck out in the lot next week.
Yeah,
we're going to do this all over again. We're going to regroup. We're going to film it so we have some media around it. He didn't like that.
No,
but,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
No, but it is. It's one of those things that I think the simple stuff. Like, man, I remember. God, even back on my Kodiak, I had to go and actually buy just a block heater cord, just the cable. It was a pain in the ass. Just plugging in the stupid cord was a pain in the ass. But God, what a difference it made halfway through that winter.
Yeah, no, I mean,
like it's a night and day. And at that point, I was living in a duplex and I lived upstairs, and I had to run an extension cord out of my kitchen window and down through. Yeah, it was classy. People dig it.
I mean, you're classy is what I would describe you as, like, within the first 3 words. So that's wild. I'm just picturing, because I mean, I've been to that apartment.
Yeah.
I'm just just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then you parked off the side of the road too, so it's like main road, your vehicle, yard, second story,
bright orange extension cord kitchen window. Yeah, my landlord came out and asked me, "What the fuck, Paul?" I'm like, "What do you want my truck to not start? You gonna drive me to work?"
Dude, I just feel like I should start calling you Uncle Eddie. Shitter's full. But I mean, for real, honestly, so we'll go back to another experience. I owned diesel vehicles 14 years. Lived in the Midwest my whole life, right, in Illinois. Never, ever in my entire life have I had a vehicle gel up on me.
Yeah,
okay?
Until last year.
Practiced all the same practices, performed all the same tasks. And where I used to live versus our old shop, it was about a 40-minute drive. And there was a 10-mile stretch on the main road off 176, Route 176. 3 times in a row, pull on a 176, truck gels up, shuts off. Now, I was also parking the truck in a garage that the temperature was set to 45, 50 degrees.
Right.
Right? How the hell does this happen? Right? So, long story short, ended up draining the fuel, did all that. I had, like, literally watered fuel. The fuel was clear.
Yeah.
It was just bad fuel that I had in the truck, and that was that. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm start running, like, everything I've done, in prior years. Granted, this is the coldest. That span was some of the coldest temperatures that we have had in years.
So like a 50 or 60 degree change in temperature over 2 days. It was nuts.
There was a 90 degree.
Yeah, that's what it was.
It was negative 45 or negative 48 one day, and then it was like 47 degrees, like, 2 days later.
Yeah.
But that kicked our asses.
It was.
And I mean, there were times, I'm always the guy that everyone at the shop calls if they need a ride, because, like, I never gel up, I never have issues, and then I was the one that I had to get towed 2 times to work.
For sure. Yeah, so, no, I mean, I ran into a problem too, just like my X5, there's no block heater. Yep. You can't put a block heater on them. And I had 2 bad glow plugs. And, like, listen, I've had bad glow plugs in a whole lot of trucks. I've never repaired a glow plug in my life because, like, yeah, it's rough, but like usually if you got a block heater, you're like, fuck it, I can start it. It drained the battery. It drained the battery on my little 3-liter just because trying to crank it and it just the glow plugs weren't there and it wouldn't start. I went through 2 batteries last winter during that same snap, and there's nothing to be done. You know, it was my own ignorance that caused that and things of that nature. But yeah, it was tough. It was a tough situation.
My 06 TDI right before back in October, we went through. We did all new glow plugs, new water pump. Went through. I did an EGR service and cleaning because I still keep the EGR in because that does help with keeping the vehicle up to operating temp a little bit quicker.
Sure.
New battery. I mean, I literally checklist because the last thing I'm going to do is let that thing leave me stranded. When it's cold. You deal with last year, and then those thought processes go in your head like, I remember those. I'm not doing that again. But and then what happens to fuel economy in the winter, Paul?
Well,
what happens to your vehicle there?
Yeah, and I think we should have hit this near the fuel section, but that's fine. So with Winter Blend, because they're putting additives in there to prevent gelling, we're going to lose fuel mileage just all the way across the board. You're also going to have extended idle times. I know at 440 around here when we get out of the shop at 5, at 440, 90% of the vehicles in our parking lot are already started, meaning guys are letting them run for 20, 30 minutes before they go to get in them. Now, to me, that's excessive.
That's excessive.
10 minutes is all anybody's vehicle needs to get warmed up. I don't care what the situation is. Your engine should be good after 10 minutes of idle.
And there's 3 points to the fuel economy thing in the winter. You touched on the long idles, right? You touched on the winter blend versus summer blend fuel.
You got it.
But third, the vehicle is designed to get optimal fuel mileage at operating temp.
Right.
When the engines are not at operating temp, the engine is going to be dosing more fuel because it's trying to
raise that temp.
Trying to get there.
Yeah.
So when you are in your colder temperatures, whether it's good fuel, bad fuel, winter blend, summer blend, you're going to utilize more fuel because the engine isn't at the desired operating temperature that it needs to be at.
Sure.
So all these things kind of come together when guys call in and they're like, well, I was getting 18 miles to the gallon, now I'm getting 15. And it's like, okay.
Sure. We'll also take into factor during the winter, we generally average a lower speed.
Exactly.
So I don't know if anybody ever clicks on like your average speed in your dash display, but you will notice that in the winter your average speed will drop because just so much more often you have to drive cautiously. Driving slower, lower fuel mileage. So all these things kind of start to play into where you really do take a hit in fuel mileage. I would never go into like massive troubleshooting for fuel mileage during the winter. I would
try
just
not
write
to.
it off as
I try not
this
to.
is winter.
I try not to.
I don't do the math. Once it gets cold, once it's below 40, I stop tracking my fuel mileage. I just don't care.
I have my TDI, I buy a TDI because I want the mileage.
Yeah.
And I have a booklet, and I document mileage per tank, gallons added, and the cost. And
who does the math for you?
Well, it's really weird. So there's this app. I mean, I've licked a window or two in my past, but I can do that math. So, I got that going on.
I can enter in a form, right?
Yeah.
No, I dig it. It's listen, winter's just a tough time for your diesel vehicles. There is still the great advantages of having a diesel all winter, right? So I understand why we all drive our trucks, drive our cars, through the winter and things like that. So it's a necessary evil. Yeah. I think if you're just a very basic plan of attack before the shit hits the fan, you're miles ahead.
Oh, I mean,
right?
Well, I mean, I think about myself in my late teens, early 20s versus my ripe age of 30 now. You've ran through those obstacles in the past, and you've gotten into those inconvenient situations to where a few $100s in a day, a Saturday of your time, just updating your vehicle for winter is not a bad thing.
One tow truck bill really makes you rethink that.
A tow truck bill sucks, especially a couple days in a row. Let me tell you. Can I get frequent flyer miles here? Come on, help me out. But no, it's just be smart, and you got to think about this stuff too, guys. To the guys out there that are driving, some of the older trucks that are having injector issues, that you keep pushing and prolonging because you don't want to spend the money. I get it.
Yep.
But these are going to be the times where all those imperfections are going to heavily shine.
Well, there's and that walks me right into something else I want to talk about is we talk about doing vehicle prep for winter, it's not just about fuel mileage and starting your vehicle. It's also about staying on the fucking road. Tires. Chris,
who cares about tires?
I have been driving on bald tires since I bought my vehicle. By this time, they are damn near slicks.
So just so all of our listeners know, he's owned the car for 2 years.
Right. Check.
Scumbag.
Yeah. So like, I hate tire shopping. I hate wheel and tire shopping. I hate the rims on my car, but I am totally inept at finding a new set of rims. I think I'm literally just going to buy whatever black shit fits on my vehicle.
One of the things that's really common to me, and this is nationwide, I would say, and in Canada, is a lot of times guys will have an aftermarket wheel for the summer, and then they have a stock wheel with a tire in the winter.
Right. But that winter tire, it's so easy to be like, oh, I threw my winter tires back on it, and not think about like, how good is my tread? Because guess what? It's not about takeoff. You have four-wheel drive to gain traction and take off. How do you stop? Well, that's the thing I think guys really skip.
I think stopping,
very commonly.
I think it's stopping, turning, maneuvering the vehicle. There's a reason, guys, that trucks come from the factory with a very narrow tire that might not necessarily look the best, but it's practical for the application, considering driving through rain, driving through snow.
Oh my God! Can we talk about narrow tires compared to wide tires in the snow?
Yeah.
So your wide tire for the mud, where you don't have a lot of traction, is almost useless in the snow.
Right.
The reason being is you're getting wider. You're pushing the snow down. You're not going to cut through it. A skinny tire, what happens is we actually cut through the snow and we get down to the pavement, which is where we're going to find the traction.
Yep. So, for the guys out there that are on a wide wheel, a 10 wide, 12 wide, there's some crazy youngsters out there running 14 wides these days. Those are not good
crazy youngsters. Shut up,
man.
Young Gun.
I don't have 14 wides
anymore.
I never did. 12, dog.
12. Sorry.
But it's one of those things where those are not friendly wheel tire combos, and I've ran those. I have, and it's a struggle. Like it is a struggle. So going back down to your 265, 75, 16, style tire, makes a lot of sense.
It also saves your expensive rims and tires.
Yeah, it
right?
saves your expensive wheels and tires. It also saves on, your risk of rear-ending the person in front of you. You're trying to turn down a road and going straight into a ditch. I mean, there's all of these things that I don't think about until the first snowfall hits, and I'm like, shit.
Tires, brakes, steering. The three things I think everybody skips over for winter prep are those three topics. And so we've hit on tires. Brakes. When have you ever replaced brake pads that weren't totally scorched? Totally scorched.
My black truck, I've been very so honestly, after I was probably like 25, 26, the value of not being a cheap ass because a few times, the last couple times in my early 20s that I ran the brakes until the pads were completely done, it cost me rotors and calipers.
Right.
So $40 or $50, and I usually don't, even if my rotors are good, I replace the rotors too. But having to replace calipers at all four corners fucking sucks.
Yes.
So
and the job sucks.
Yeah.
Too. It's not just the cost.
Yeah. So I mean, I do tow with like the Cummins more frequently than ever before. So I actually do my pads fairly frequently, like once a year.
Yeah.
But I usually do them in the spring. I don't do them in the winter, but I don't put that many miles on the truck throughout the summer.
In the winter. Right.
But like my TDI, I did all the brakes right before winter.
You do it right before winter. You do it the fall. You get around Thanksgiving time. You go put brakes on the truck. It's easy to do it yearly, especially if you're doing that like 10, 15,000 miles a year. Should easily be able to get that out of a set of pads.
Think about this. You have a metal on metal in the back, and you have a pad on rotor in the front. Those wheels are going to stop and lock up at two different rates at that point.
Yeah.
And on ice, snow, like that's when things get very, very, very questionable.
Yep.
And you're in for a wild ride. And I mean, to our listeners, like, I can't believe we're talking about a winter, a winter gel or a winter prep for a vehicle, and you guys are sitting here trying to be brake experts. Like, it's logical. This is basic shit. Think about it. We have to think about all these different things.
Well, and that's where steering falls in as well.
Yep.
I know I have driven a lot of older trucks in my life where the steering sucked. The death wobble out of a Cummins,
the 12 valve of the world.
Yeah, and also just like things like in a Duramax where your steering column is cocked 15 degrees.
Yep.
All the little things like that, if you've been putting it off, please don't put it off until you get into an accident. please put it off until it's winter and you realize this makes me more susceptible to crashing.
Yeah. Well,
that's a no-brainer.
Then we can really show our age and we could talk about headlights. We could talk about having a quality headlight that you can see in front of you in the event that it is snowing or at nighttime, and needing to be able to see the road. And granted, you can't see black ice, but you could see a glare on the road to say, okay, you know what, I need to be a little bit more cautious moving forward.
Sure.
All of these things really do mean a lot.
They do. They're all little things. They're all easy to overlook. They're all easy to say, it's good enough.
Yep.
But really, I think that's what we've learned is over the years, good enough is good enough until there's snow on the ground. And then every moron around you forgets how to drive.
Yep.
And now you're the one stuck with the big truck.
Yep.
And which means everybody around you is going to blame you no matter what happens. So yeah, we just really stress that, take a minute, think about it, put that plan together, put that checklist together, go through and get everything done, get totally prepared. Yeah. I just think it's a smart way to handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what do we take from this episode, Paul? Like when this is all said and done, dust settled, we get judged for talking about fuel and tire and brakes for the last half hour. Don't park your vehicle on empty in the winter. Right?
That's it. That's a good one.
Don't
so I think we could wrap up the categories, right? So think about your fuel system, front to back. Think about stopping. Think about steering, and think about seeing. Think about seeing. That's it.
There you go.
That's it. We nailed it. All right, guys. Hey, I'm really excited for next week's episode as well. I want to give you guys a little kind of heads up what we're working on over the next couple of weeks. We're coming into that Christmas break time. So Chris and I are going to be going out doing a ride along in our boss's 2015.
Yeah, it's a early 15. It's not even a 15 and a half.
So weak. No, Jamie, we love you. So we're going out to drive Jamie's truck, twin turbo, LML, built trans, tuning, all emissions equipped, like 640 horsepower, emissions equipped.
So basically,
twin turbo LML.
It's a very similar setup to a truck that we did a ride along in. Probably one of your favorite trucks.
It is
Jason Worley's regular cab, which was it was a 2016. Regular cab twin turboed, and this one, Jamie's truck's a little more refined. It's a crew cab Denali. He uses it for towing and recreational purposes. Goes on trips with the family, and he wanted to replicate a truck or do a truck that can serve multi-purpose and still offer all the creature comforts of what a Denali is. And I'm really excited to get behind the wheel of it, mainly because it's not my truck.
I'm gonna beat on that thing.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be fun. Like, I'm really excited, and he knows it's coming.
Yeah.
But it's a truck that shows very well. It drives really well. So I'm going to be excited. Get us both on camera doing that, and we're going to do a ride along, and that'll be a 2-part episode.
Yeah. Well, no. So that'll lead us into a video we shot with Jamie and Nick back in the day. So we do these awesome videos called Diesel Insights videos over at Duramax Tuners YouTube channel. And in those videos, we really don't talk about products and what you should buy. We really talk about more educational diesel-related content. And one of the videos we did that I thought was really, really helpful was recreational towing. Because there's so many guys out there who might not tow for a living, but they bought their diesel trucks so they could pull their camper, or pull their boat, or have
Razor,
whatever it is, right? So we actually sat down with Jamie, who is that exact person, and Nick and him talked for a long time, probably about 15, 20 minutes, just about recreational towing. So after we do the ride-along in Jamie's truck, we'll have that audio up next week, the week before Christmas. The week of Christmas, we're going to actually have that Diesel Insights episode in the podcast feed. So you guys are going to be able to hear that whole Diesel Insights episode in the feed. Should be a lot of fun. If you guys have questions, comments, concerns, I officially renamed the group. The Facebook group.
Well, we're out of that 30-day grace.
Yeah, we are out of our 30-day lockdown.
What's the new name?
Fans of Diesel Performance Podcast.
I think that's a good one. I like that more than the first one.
Yeah.
The second one.
The second
name.
So we're going to land on that Facebook group for a while. Guys, if you haven't jumped on, join the Facebook group. It's growing quickly. Yeah. We have awesome members who give real advice. If you're new to diesel, don't be shy. Request will auto-approve you in there. Nobody's going to harass you about asking a newbie question. We are here to help.
And on that topic, guys, if you feel that there is a potential episode that we could do based off of recommendations, please provide that information. Let us know what you're thinking. Make those recommendations. They're very warmly welcomed.
Absolutely.
It helps us out, as Paul and I have a full-time job over at Calibrated Power Duramax Tuner, and we do this as a hobby, I would say.
Yeah.
We enjoy doing it. It helps to come up with new content that our listeners want to listen to. So, we don't always want to have to, will this work? Will this not work? Or our listeners like to hear it? Give us your feedback. We'd really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. For today, this has been Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
Thanks for listening.
I listen to coke dealing and shooting.
He does on his way to his 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
That
After I got Starbucks.
With a Starbucks in his hand in his diesel vehicle on his way to his diesel performance job.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.